This is the story of how Cardi B's first ever headlining arena tour went millions of dollars over budget before it even started. The Little Miss Drama Tour is set to kick off in February 2026, but just days into rehearsals, the rapper revealed she's facing a financial crisis that might force her to pay out of her own pocket to save the show. If you want to see how this whole situation plays out, go ahead and hit that like button right now, and make sure you're subscribed because we're tracking every update as this tour gets closer. Let's break down exactly what's happening with one of the most anticipated tours of the year and why Cardi B is scrambling to find money just weeks before she's supposed to hit the stage.
On January 7th of 2026, Cardi B went live on Instagram and dropped news that shocked her fans. And this happened just one day after she'd started rehearsals in Los Angeles. Instead of hyping up the tour like most artists would, she admitted something most would never say publicly, which is that she's over budget by what she called a couple of $1 million. When Cardi says a couple of million, we're talking about serious money here, not some small miscalculation that can be fixed with a few phone calls. This is a budget crisis that's forcing her team to redo the entire financial plan for the tour. And according to Cardi herself, they're redoing the budget every other week, which tells you just how unstable the financial situation has become.
Here's what she said directly, and I'm quoting her exact words. "I'm over a couple of million on my budget tour. We redid the budget, so now it's just like I gotta go find the money, or I would have to put some of my own money for things that I want because I went over my budget." Think about that for a second, because this is Cardi B we're talking about, one of the biggest female rappers in the world with millions in the bank, brand deals with companies like Shein and NYX, her own whip shots, vodka-infused products, and she's still saying she might have to dip into her personal funds to cover tour costs. That should tell you how expensive modern arena tours have become and how quickly costs can spiral out of control, even for major artists. Before anyone says she's broke, let's be clear about something. Cardi revealed in December 2024 that she spends about $3 million a month on her lifestyle, so she definitely has money. The difference is between having personal wealth and having a tour that's financially viable. Because tours are businesses, and if the costs exceed the revenue you can generate, you're in trouble, regardless of how much is sitting in your personal bank account. Here's where Cardi showed something really rare in the music industry, which is brutal honesty about what fans should expect when they buy tickets. Most artists would hype up their tour and promise the world and build up expectations sky high. But Cardi did the opposite and straight up told fans not to expect a Beyoncé-level production. Her exact words, and these are powerful, "I ain't no damn Beyoncé, so don't be expecting any of that. I don't got that production money, but I'm gonna give it all I got. I'm working hard, I'm popping it." And speaking of giving it all we got, if you're appreciating this deep dive into the business side of touring, smash that subscribe button, because we break down the real numbers behind the music industry that other channels won't touch. Why would she say this and potentially lower expectations for her own show? The answer is that she knows what's at stake here. Beyoncé's Renaissance World Tour had massive LED screens that stretched across entire arenas, elaborate costume changes every few songs, a full orchestra backing the tracks, intricate choreography with dozens of dancers moving in perfect sync, and production elements that cost tens of millions of dollars to create and transport. Fans have seen what's possible when you have an unlimited budget and a decade of touring experience behind you. Cardi's managing expectations because she knows her budget can't compete with that level of production, and she'd rather be honest up front than have fans disappointed when they show up to the show. She also emphasized that the tour is, quote, catered to Barty Gang and to people who are not even Barty Gang but are some type of fan of mine or just want to have a good time. This is going to be about the energy, the personality, the music itself, and the connection with fans, not about jaw-dropping production value that you'd see at a Beyoncé or Taylor Swift show. Let's talk about what the Little Miss Drama Tour actually is, because understanding the scale helps explain why the costs spiraled the way they did. This is Cardi B's first ever headlining arena tour,
And that's a detail you need to understand because it changes everything. After more than 7 years in the mainstream music industry and after becoming one of the biggest names in hip-hop, she's never done a full arena tour where she's the only headliner carrying the entire show. The tour includes 35 to 36 dates across North America, hitting major cities in the United States and Canada from February through April. It kicks off February 11th of 2026 at the Acrisure Arena in Palm Desert, California, and wraps up April 17th or 18th at State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia, assuming everything goes according to plan and the budget issues don't force any changes.
We're talking major venues here that hold massive crowds. The Kia Forum in Los Angeles gets 2 nights on February 15th and 16th. T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas on February 13th. 2 nights at Madison Square Garden in New York, which is one of the most iconic venues in the world. State Farm Arena in Atlanta for the grand finale. These aren't clubs or theaters where you can get away with simpler production. These are massive arenas that hold 15 to 20,000 people each, and every single person in those seats expects a show worth the ticket price they paid. The tour was officially announced on September 16th of 2025, when Cardi appeared on Today with Jenna and Friends and made the big reveal. The artist pre-sale started September 23rd to give her hardcore fans first access, and general tickets went on sale September 25th to the public. As of late 2025, overall ticket sales had reached approximately 81% capacity, which is actually solid and better than a lot of tours manage. But tickets were still available for most dates as of January 2026, which means the revenue isn't locked in yet.
By the way, if you're the kind of person who loves seeing the business side of celebrity life fall apart in real time, you need to hit that like button, because that's exactly what we cover on this channel. Here's the thing about arena tours that most people don't understand. They're incredibly expensive to produce, and the costs add up faster than you can imagine. You need elaborate stage setups that get built and torn down in different cities every other night. Massive LED screens that can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars just to rent. Intricate lighting rigs with thousands of individual lights controlled by computers. Sound systems that can fill enormous spaces without distortion. Dozens of crew members who need to be paid and housed and fed, multiple trucks to transport everything from city to city, security teams at every venue, dancers who rehearse for weeks, choreographers to create the routines, costume designers to make dozens of outfits, and the list goes on and on and on.
According to what we know about the tour production plans, Cardi had arranged for towering LED screens, elaborate set pieces that would transform the stage throughout the show, pyrotechnics that would shoot flames and sparks at key moments, dramatic lighting effects that would change the mood of the arena, and bold choreography with thematic visual motifs from her album connecting everything together. All of that costs money. And we're talking serious money that adds up to millions before you even step on stage for the first show. When you're doing it for the first time without the touring infrastructure and experience that established touring artists like Beyoncé or Madonna have built over decades, it's easy to underestimate costs and blow through your budget before you realize what's happening.
To understand the pressure Cardi's under with this tour, you have to understand the album it's supporting and why this record was supposed to be her big comeback moment. Am I the Drama dropped on September 19th of 2025, and it was a massive deal for one simple reason. It came 7 years after her debut album, Invasion of Privacy. 7 years is the gap we're talking about here. That's an eternity in the music industry, where artists usually release albums every 1 to 3 years just to stay relevant and keep their names in the conversation. Cardi went 7 years, and fans had been waiting, wondering if she'd ever drop a second album or if she was done with music altogether.
When it finally came out, after all that waiting, Am I the Drama debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 with 200,000 equivalent album units in its first week. That number broke down to 88,000 pure album sales, 110,000 streaming equivalent album units from over 145 million on-demand streams across platforms, and 2,000 track equivalent album units from individual song purchases. Let's put that in perspective by comparing it to her debut. Her first album, Invasion of Privacy, did 255,000 units in its first week back in 2018, with 103,000 pure sales. So Am I the Drama did slightly less in its first week. Some people saw that as a disappointment, but the album still made history despite the lower numbers.
Cardi became the only female rapper in history to debut her first 2 albums at #1 on the Billboard 200, which is a record that may never be broken. The album spent 8 consecutive weeks in the Billboard 200 Top 10, which is the most for any female rap album released in the 2020s so far. It was certified platinum on release day, which is wild, and later went 3 times platinum, making it the highest certified female rap album of the 2020s decade so far. The album also put 18 songs on the Billboard Hot 100 at the same time, which is the most entries for any female rap album in history, and shows how much impact the record had. The lead single, Outside, reached #10 on the Hot 100 and became one of the biggest songs of the fall. These are incredible achievements that most artists would kill for.
But here's the business reality that changes everything. Album sales alone don't generate the kind of revenue they used to back when people bought physical CDs and vinyl. Streaming pays fractions of pennies per play, so even 145 million streams doesn't translate to huge money. Even going triple platinum doesn't give you the massive paydays artists used to get from physical album sales in the 90s and early 2000s. The real money in music now comes from touring, and that's where artists make their fortune these days. That's exactly why this tour is so important for Cardi, and why the budget crisis is such a huge problem that could derail everything. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room that makes this whole situation even more complicated. Cardi B gave birth to her 4th child on November 4th of 2025, which she announced publicly on November 13th after keeping it private for over a week. That means when the Little Miss Drama Tour kicks off on February 11th of 2026, her baby will be just over 3 months old, barely out of the newborn stage.
3 months postpartum, and she's supposed to do a 35-date arena tour with elaborate choreography that requires her to dance for 2 hours straight, pyrotechnics going off around her, and high-energy performances night after night in different cities with almost no time to recover. Let that sink in for a minute and think about what that actually means physically. The father of the baby is Stephon Diggs, the New England Patriots wide receiver whose relationship with Cardi has been all over the news and social media. Their relationship timeline moved fast. Dating speculation started in October 2024, the relationship was confirmed in May 2025, and Cardi announced her pregnancy on September 17th of 2025, which happened to be just 2 days before her album dropped and the day after she announced the tour.
If you're hooked on this drama and want to see what happens when the tour actually starts, do me a favor and subscribe, because we'll be covering every single development. And trust me, there's going to be more drama coming. Cardi now has 4 children total, and that's a lot to manage even without a tour. Her daughter Culture, her son Wave, her daughter Blossom from her previous relationship with Offset, and now her newborn son with Stephon Diggs. 4 kids under the age of 7 while trying to launch the biggest tour of your career is a situation that would overwhelm almost anyone.
During her recent Instagram Live from rehearsals in Los Angeles, Cardi talked about how exhausted she was after just the 2nd day of practice. She said, and I'm quoting her, "It's just like a lot. On top of that, it's a lot of dance moves that I gotta do, and I'm just ready to go home." That was day 2 of rehearsals, and she already sounded drained. But here's the thing about Cardi that you have to respect. She's tough as nails and doesn't make excuses for herself. She told fans she was back in the gym just 1 week after giving birth, pushing herself when most women are still recovering at home. She said, and I'm quoting her exact words again, "By the time tour comes, I'll be doing splits, somersaults, backflips, and handstands." That's the level of commitment and physical intensity she's bringing to this, whether her body is ready for it or not.
commitment doesn't change the physical reality of what she's dealing with, though. And that's what makes this situation so intense. Performing at an elite level while recovering from childbirth, caring for a newborn who's only 3 months old, managing 3 other kids who need attention, maintaining a new relationship that's under constant media scrutiny with paparazzi following them everywhere, and dealing with a tour that's millions over budget and threatening to collapse financially, that's an almost impossible amount of pressure for any human being to handle, celebrity or not. This isn't the first time pregnancy has complicated Cardi's touring plans, and that history makes this situation even more loaded with pressure and trauma from the past. Back in 2018, after she released Invasion of Privacy in April, Cardi got pregnant with her first daughter, Culture, during what should have been the prime touring window for promoting that album. She gave birth in July 2018, and that pregnancy forced her to cancel multiple major festival appearances that summer, which cost her hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost revenue.
She had to pull out of JMBLYA festival dates in Texas, where she was supposed to headline, Rolling Loud in Florida, which is one of the biggest hip-hop festivals in the country, Roskilde Festival in Denmark and Norway, which would have been her international breakthrough, Panorama Festival in New York, and Wireless Festival in the UK in July. These were huge opportunities to build her touring reputation and prove she could headline major festivals, and she had to walk away from all of them and watch other artists take those spots. Years later, in a 2024 Rolling Stone interview, Cardi opened up about how scared she was during that time and how much guilt she carried. She said, and these words are powerful, "I was really, really scared. I just felt like, damn, I'm letting everybody down. I'm letting my family down. I'm letting everybody that works for me down."
She also talked about the reality of having a newborn and why touring wasn't possible even if she wanted to push through it. "My baby was so little, germs and planes and ear popping on a newborn. Can you imagine a baby in a tour bus?" Those are legitimate concerns that no amount of money or ambition can solve when your child is that vulnerable. Cardi was brutally honest about her postpartum experience in a way most celebrities avoid talking about publicly. "It messed me up. Postpartum is something you can't even explain. Postpartum everything. It becomes depression because it's a drastic change." That's real talk about mental health struggles that millions of women experience, but rarely hear celebrities admit to. Even her team was alarmed when she got pregnant the first time, which shows how much pressure she was under. In a 2018 W magazine interview, she revealed the panic that happened behind the scenes. "When I got pregnant, I was freaking out. Everybody around me was like, no, this never happened before. Every artist that had a baby, they already put in years in the game. You're gonna mess it up." And if you think this story's wild, wait until we get to the part about how much money is actually at stake here. Hit that like button if you're still watching, because the numbers are about to blow your mind.
When Cardi talks about how important this Little Miss drama tour is, understand that it's carrying the weight of 2018's disappointment and all those canceled shows. Back then, she didn't have the option to tour because her baby was too young and the circumstances weren't right, so she had to watch her debut album era pass by without capitalizing on it through live shows. This tour is supposed to be her redemption, her chance to finally prove she can do a full arena tour as a mother and show that having kids doesn't end your career. That's why the budget crisis hits so hard emotionally, not just financially. She's already overcome so much just to get to this point, dealt with so much criticism and doubt, and now money problems are threatening to derail everything before the first show even happens.
Let's address what everyone wants to know and what all the comments are asking about. How much money are we actually talking about here, and how bad is the financial situation really? The truth is, we don't have exact figures for the tour's total budget or how much revenue it's expected to generate, because those numbers are kept private by tour promoters and artists. Cardi only said she's a couple of $1 million over budget, but we don't know if the original budget was $10 million, $20 million, or $50 million, which makes a huge difference in how serious the overrun actually is.
What we do know is that in December 2024, before all of this happened, Cardi revealed she had been offered $65 million for a tour in a previous discussion. That offer broke down to $1.1 million per show and $1.5 million for festival appearances, which gives you a sense of the money that's on the table for an artist at Cardi's level. We don't know if that offer was for this specific tour or a different opportunity that she turned down, but it shows the scale of money we're dealing with.
We also know that as of late 2025, the Little Miss Drama Tour had sold approximately 81% of available tickets, which honestly isn't bad at all for a first-time arena tour. The problem is it's not sold out either, and with tickets still available for most dates as of January 2026, there's some concern about whether the tour will generate enough revenue to cover its costs and actually turn a profit instead of losing money. The VIP packages are available with premium seating, meet-and-greet opportunities where fans get to actually talk to Cardi, pre-show parties with exclusive access, and exclusive merchandise you can't buy anywhere else. These are typically high-margin revenue sources that can make the difference between profit and loss on a tour. Even with those premium offerings bringing in extra cash, if your production costs are out of control and spiraling higher every week, you can still lose money on every single show.
Here's the brutal math of arena touring that most fans don't understand. You might sell out every show and have packed arenas every night, but if your production costs are too high, your crew expenses too large because you hired too many people, your travel costs too expensive because you're flying everyone instead of using buses, and your venue deals not favorable enough because you don't have negotiating power as a first-time headliner, you can still end up in the red when everything is counted up. Plenty of artists have had successful-looking tours that actually lost money when you account for all the costs, and some have even gone bankrupt from tours that looked profitable from the outside. So where does this leave Cardi B and the Little Miss Drama Tour with just over a month to go? As of right now, in early January 2026, the tour is still scheduled to start on February 11th, and there's been no announcement of delays or cancellations. Cardi is in Los Angeles doing rehearsals every day, working on choreography with her dance team, and trying to figure out how to deliver a show that meets her standards without breaking the bank any further or going deeper into debt.
Her options at this point seem to be limited to 3 choices. Find additional financing somewhere to cover the budget overrun, which could mean bringing in new investors or sponsors, use her own personal money to fund the parts of the production she really wants and can't compromise on, or scale back the production elements to get costs under control and accept a more stripped-down show. She's already told fans not to expect Beyoncé-level production, which suggests she's chosen to scale back rather than go into massive debt or risk her personal finances. That's probably the smart move financially, even if it's disappointing for fans who wanted a huge spectacle with all the bells and whistles.
The question that nobody can answer yet is whether fans will accept a more stripped-down show when they paid arena prices for tickets. Cardi's banking on her personality, her energy, her music, and her connection with the audience to carry the experience instead of relying on expensive production tricks. She's betting that people are coming to see her, not just expensive production elements like massive LED screens and pyrotechnics. Honestly, she might be right about that bet. Cardi B's strength has never been about having the biggest budget or the most elaborate staging that money can buy. It's about being authentic, real, and unfiltered in a way that most celebrities aren't. It's about giving 100% of her energy and making people feel like they're partying with a friend, not watching a distant superstar perform from far away on a stage they can barely see. If you want to know how this turns out, you better subscribe right now, because we're going to be following this tour from start to finish, and something tells me there's going to be plenty more drama before it's over. The fact that she's being transparent about the budget problems actually works in her favor from a public relations standpoint. Instead of pretending everything's perfect and then disappointing fans with a lackluster production that doesn't match the hype, she's managing expectations up front in a smart way. She's saying, look, I don't have unlimited money like some of these other artists, but I'm going to work my butt off for you and give you the best show I can.
That honesty is very on brand for Cardi and matches her image as someone who keeps it real.
This situation with Cardi B's tour reveals something important about the music industry right now that applies to way more artists than just her. Even massive stars with hit albums, millions of social media followers, and huge fan bases are struggling with the economics of touring in 2026. The costs have gotten so high over the past few years that it's genuinely difficult to make arena tours profitable unless you're at the absolute top tier with years of touring experience and established infrastructure. Cardi is attempting something most artists build up to gradually over many years of smaller tours. They start with club shows and small venues holding a few hundred people, move to theaters with a couple thousand seats, then maybe do some arenas as a co-headliner where they split costs with another artist, and eventually graduate to their own arena tour after they've figured out the logistics and built the infrastructure to support it.
Cardi skipped a lot of those steps because of her unique path to fame, which wasn't traditional at all. She blew up so fast with Invasion of Privacy that she went from being relatively unknown to being one of the biggest names in music almost overnight. And that kind of rapid success doesn't give you time to learn the touring business the traditional way. She never had the chance to build a touring operation gradually because she got pregnant right after her first album dropped, so she missed that entire learning period that most artists go through. Now she's trying to launch a massive arena tour as a first-time headliner while dealing with being a mother of 4, recovering from childbirth that happened just 3 months ago, managing a new relationship in the public eye with constant media attention, and figuring out the business side of touring on the fly without any prior experience. It's no wonder the budget spiraled out of control when you look at all those factors combined.
The silver lining in all of this is that Cardi is being real about it instead of hiding behind corporate statements. She's not hiding behind publicist statements or corporate speak that makes everything sound perfect when it's not. She's going on Instagram Live and saying, yeah, we're over budget, we're figuring it out, it's stressful, but we're going to make it work. That transparency is refreshing in an industry where artists usually pretend everything is perfect until they're forced to cancel shows or file for bankruptcy and the truth comes out. Here's what's really at stake with the Little Miss Drama Tour and why this matters beyond just one tour. This is Cardi B's chance to prove she belongs in the top tier of touring artists alongside people like Beyoncé and Taylor Swift. This is her opportunity to show that she can deliver a full arena tour, that she can perform night after night for 2 months straight without her voice giving out or her energy fading, that she can handle the physical and mental demands of life on the road, and that she can do all of it while being a mother to 4 young children.
If this tour succeeds, even with budget problems and scaled-back production that doesn't match what other artists are doing, it validates her entire career and proves the doubters wrong. It proves that the 7-year wait for her second album was worth it, and fans are still loyal, that her fans are still loyal after all that time away, and that she has the stamina and skill to compete at the highest level despite being a mother. If the tour struggles, if she has to cancel dates because of health issues or financial problems, if the production problems become too much to overcome, or if ticket sales don't improve and shows have to be moved to smaller venues, it raises questions about her viability as a touring artist going forward. In modern music, if you can't tour successfully, your career options become much more limited because that's where the money is.
That's why she's willing to potentially use her own money to make this work, even though it could cost her millions. That's why she's pushing through exhaustion in rehearsals when her body is telling her to rest. That's why she's being transparent with fans about the challenges instead of pretending everything is fine. She knows how important this is, not just for her bank account, but for her legacy and her place in music history. The Little Miss Drama Tour opens on February 11th in Palm Desert, California, which is just over a month away from today. Between now and then, Cardi B has to finalize the production and lock in what stays and what goes, finish rehearsals and perfect the choreography, continue recovering from childbirth while getting her stamina back,
care for a 3-month-old baby who needs constant attention, and somehow find the money to cover millions in budget overruns without going into debt.
It's a lot to handle. It's maybe too much for any one person to handle at the same time. But if there's one thing we know about Cardi B from watching her career, it's that she doesn't quit when things get hard. She fights, she works, she finds a way to make it happen even when everyone doubts her. Whether that determination will be enough to overcome a budget crisis and pull off a successful tour is something we're all going to find out very soon. The curtain goes up in just over a month, and one way or another, Cardi B is about to step on stage for the biggest test of her career so far.
This is her first arena tour after years of waiting. This is her chance to cement her place among the elite touring artists. And she's starting from millions of dollars in the hole before the first show even happens. If she pulls this off and the tour is successful despite all these problems, it'll be one of the greatest comeback stories in recent music history. If she doesn't and the tour fails financially or has to be canceled, it'll be a very public, very expensive lesson in the brutal economics of modern touring that will follow her for years. Either way, it's going to be fascinating to watch how this unfolds over the next few months, and we'll be here covering every single development, every update, and every twist in this story.